Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Dan, go. It's been a little too long, couple of years since we chatted. It's great to have you back. And you are the fitness coach to entrepreneurs. And much like myself, you start out in more of a traditional, maybe corporate type career, 9 to 5, became a trainer a little bit later on. We talked about that in your previous appearance. But now you have a super successful business, coaches working under you, an email newsletter that's got almost 500,000 subscribers. And one of my favorite things, if people go to your media, especially social media and email, you're creating messaging for the end user. You do not get caught up in the status games and the infighting and the nastiness that our industry often, gets distracted by. And I think you do a great job of actually serving the end user. It's great to have you back.
Thank you. What I realize is that the end user has no idea those things are going on in the first place. And one of the things I just strive to do is I try to make this fitness game and this journey, this ability to get in shape as accessible to people as possible. Pretty much people like me when I was just starting out. And yeah, arguing over semantics and all that kind of stuff. I think it pales in comparison to just like focusing on educating.
This episode is brought to you by Renaissance Periodization and the RP Hypertrophy app. RP is the industry leader in muscle building, coaching, and education. This app is like having a coach in your pocket. It gives you everything you need, including training programs, form videos. It gives you all your sets, reps, and weights, so you just show up and follow the plan. It adjusts each week based off your progress. And the app was created by Dr. Mike Isertel, Nick Shaw, and the team at RP, who I've known for many years. And the entire team are incredible people who've always been supportive and generous with me, so I know their character and are easy to endorse. My library contains several RP books, and I've used RP training principles in my workouts and coaching with my clients for many years, long before the explosion in popularity of their YouTube channel, which is worth checking out. RP is the first sponsor I felt remotely comfortable endorsing after over 7 years of podcasting. And if hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to maximize your gains and take the guesswork out of your program. And there's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free. If you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got a serious discount for you of up to $50 US. Go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. And that's rpstrength.com/coats. Use the code COATSRP. Well, let's get right down to it. So
Yeah.
what does someone need to do to feel better in their 40s and beyond than they felt in their 20s?
I feel like the 40s are such a critical time to get yourself in shape. A lot of people would call it like the middle age, when the middle age is really, I think, like 36 if life expectancy is 77. It's probably like there's 38, 39, most likely. And when I say it's like the most important time, I find that people go in one of two directions, usually at 40, where they're going to take the shit seriously and they're going to get themselves in shape, or their habits that they've been carrying on for, maybe like 20 years are just going to continue on and just get worse. The things that people need to get in shape at their 40s is the same things that they need to do at 20s, but the game kind of changes a little bit. And what I mean by that is like from your 20s to 30s, you have a lot of things working for you, lack of responsibilities, not a lot of stress, or else I would think like not a lot of stress. We'll see. A lot of people may not agree with that statement. But when you're 40s, you have multiple stresses. You probably have a family, so kids you have to take care of. You have a career. You have maybe a dog that's your companion, or you have your wife that you must keep this relationship strong with, and you also have your social events, your hobbies, and everything all in between. I think like Ray Dalio calls it the midlife squeeze, so to speak. So I think it's important, especially when your life is so busy, that you have to integrate these healthy behaviors now. Because if you actually integrate them at your busiest, then they are going to be easier to do when life maybe gets like a little bit lighter for yourself. So that's why I think like the 40s is the most important. And yeah, you would make sure that you're doing the same things, but also making sure that you are avoiding injury as much as humanly possible, because it just becomes harder to like recover from that stuff.
Are there specific beliefs that, well, you changed or that you see in your successful clients that need to change?
The belief is inherently whether or not they deserve they get to get in shape in the first place. So I do believe that transformation is both psychological and physical. Psychologically, we wanna have the right beliefs that serve us to say that if someone has done this for themselves, then I can too. It's like the belief that it can be done in the first place. That's number one. The second belief is like, if I do this, can I maintain it even after I get to this specific goal? Which is something that a lot of people ask is like, what do I do at the end of this, the diet and the end of like this trend? It's like, this becomes your life. And that's what not a lot of people understand. And that's what they're actually scared of. On the physical side, even though the principles may be the same, it's going to be different for every single person. And I think that we try to box people into saying like you have to squat, bench, deadlift, or you have to do this diet, or you have to do this and that. When the reality is that there is a bio individuality to what people respond to when it comes to their workouts, when it comes to their nutrition, and there are certain things that people find easier than others, whether it be intermittent fasting, cutting carbs, or eating a balanced diet. So we all have to find our bio individuality when it comes to this stuff. And we have to honor kind of like what our bodies are saying, as opposed to like what people are telling us, saying that you shouldn't do this based on evidence this, evidence that, or whatever it is.
And are there any behaviors that you've isolated, again, with the populations you're working with, that by changing those specific behaviors, you've seen the most outsized return?
Yeah. Well, we're going to start with the dieting part, obviously. It all comes back down to usually I find it's like the diet and sleep. The exercise, I don't necessarily feel like a lot of people have that issue, like forcing themselves or putting themselves into the gym, doing the exercise. Some people do have issues, but I think it does come down a lot to like the diet and sleep part. And when it comes to the diet, the one thing I'm always looking for is going to be what is the number one constraint that prevents this particular person from achieving the goal that they set out for themselves. Common ones that I usually see is snacking when they're bored, eating at night is a major one. I would even say to a certain degree, it's like they tried so many diets that their eating is somewhat disordered. They're all or nothing. They're either on the diet or like they're off the diet. These are kind of like the common behaviors when it comes to like dieting. When it comes to like the sleep part, it's like just getting yourself to sleep on time. Like I think like people are scrolling, way crazier than they did before, and then that's also preventing them from going to sleep at a nominal time. The other thing is going to be also like the eating part, like being able to stop your eating at least like 3 to 5 hours before you go to sleep, so you can help your body rest and digest and get better quality sleep. And in general, it's like I think there's like this deprioritization of sleep for these, I guess you could say short-term benefits of being able to numb your mind a little bit more on social media. So usually I see like these two kind of like big pillar behaviors are what holds people back from being able to not only get lean, but also keep themselves lean.
I think there's something deeper here with the mind-numbing stuff. It's usually because someone feels really stressed out and they've got a narrative, a story that, well, I deserve this
Yeah.
time to relax and unwind. And the first thing I'll always challenge is if you're scrolling social media, and social media invariably is dominated by, well, enragement bait, negativity, anger, outrage, etc., that stuff is not restful on your nervous system, is not promoting parasympathetic nervous system tone. So I think that people are lulled in this false sense that this is actually restorative. And I would argue that, exercise, a walk,
Yeah.
and certainly getting away from devices within the hour before bed, if not longer, is probably going to be far more restorative. And that'll
I
translate into your energy the next day, which creates a positive spiral.
I
Thoughts?
I think I think you're right. You are right, and I'll throw in a little bit of uh, nuance
Hmm.
where it's the type of content that you see right before you go to sleep is going to have a tremendous impact on your ability to sleep. Like if it enrages you, if it stresses you out, then it's probably not something that you want to, look at. This is actually the reason why you don't want to look at emails. You don't want to look at Slack. You don't want to look at, even like go on X,
Hmm.
because that's where you're going to get a lot of that stuff, right? Not to say that X is like a primarily negative platform, but again. But then there is also something to be said about the changing of the type of content that you're looking at. So it's like if someone's looking at these memes or these videos that just make them like laugh uncontrollably for the last hour of their nights, then I would say like, yeah, I think that's kind of cool. We don't really get a chance to laugh every day, and if we were able to do that through social media, then so be it. If you're looking at say something like a movie or something that even just like numbs your mind, I don't necessarily like see that as being such a negative thing. And yeah, you want to like walk and do all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I think there is a place for kind of like just doing stuff that just like turns your brain off, but you do have to monitor the quality of that, of what you're consuming for sure.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, I could think of friends who it's safe to open their DMs late because it's going to be cat videos or
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings stuff or whatever. One of my best friends like that. But then there are other people I know that they're going to be sending me something that's like political outrage, and I'm not interested in that to begin with, but I certainly am not opening that before bed, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
You talk.
I don't know. I think I've gotten all people that would have sent me all that stuff. I'm like they don't. I would never. I wouldn't even want to
Well,
see that stuff. Let's just say that.
I've got some
Yeah.
questions about that'll go into curating the people you interact with.
Yeah.
But one of the posts you had, it talks about red flags you wish you knew in your 20s.
Mm,
And alcohol is a big one. You talk a
mm,
lot about alcohol on your media.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you want to dive into that?
Absolutely. So to give you context, like I thought alcohol was a pretty normal thing, and you've seen. It's funny because, long story short, I took a year away from alcohol. It gave me a lot of perspective on what it does for you. I mean, there's some slight benefit. I'm not going to say there's absolutely zero benefit. I'll get into what that is. And then there's also like tremendous downstream negative benefit or negative consequences as well. So when I was growing up, I would see alcohol being drank on TV, and I would see the parties that my parents would hold, and everybody would drinking beer, and I'm like, okay, cool. Like there's a normal part of everyday living. And then in high school, I ended up starting to drink a lot more. It was like my escape from a very dysfunctional childhood. And I would drink like every single week and get like super buzzed. And then this continued on until like my late 30s and 40s. And then I always thought this was like the healthy thing to do. I was like, oh, you drink a glass of wine and it's a part of a healthy lifestyle. And then one of the pieces of content that moved me was actually from Andrew Huberman. He actually talked about like the science-based consequences of drinking alcohol. And then I decided, hey, this alcohol has been a part of my life for like the past 20 years. What would happen if I just like stopped drinking it for like 6 weeks? I wonder what would happen. So I ended up doing it for about 6 weeks, and I was like, wow, my brain's working so much better. I'm so high energy right now. My business is, doing a lot better as well. I think I'm just going to extend this to 4 months, then 6 months, then it became a year. And then I think that year gave me a chance to zoom out from this behavior that I was doing every single day. And it showed me that there are slight benefits, but a lot of bad downstream consequences. And when it comes to, let's just say alcohol, like the downstream consequences are going to be number one, your health. So it invites certain types of cancers.
Mm.
The other thing I like to say is that if you do get buzzed and if you do get kind of like drunk, it will take away at least 3 to 4 days of your true potential, and that will accelerate the older that you get. Because something that we're seeing with like recovery from alcohol, especially as you get older, is that it takes a little bit longer. This is also because of the reason like our circadian rhythms become a little bit more dysfunctional as we age, but it affects you a lot more than it does when you were younger. And the thing that I realized was like I do think that the rare occasion of sharing a drink with a friend where you can actually use the drink to enhance the bonding experience, I think that's actually a net positive for health. And sharing a glass of wine with one of your friends, with one of your buddies, on a rare occasion, awesome. For the rest of the time, if it is a habit and if it is something that you see yourself doing on a regular occasion, and it's not something that you can see yourself stopping, then that's actually when it becomes a serious issue that you would want to stop and zoom out and get better perspective on.
I love the nuance because, I know people, if I post or I see someone posting something about drinking responsibly, there's always a subsection. It's growing that is just come in and it's pure bombast. It's like no amount of alcohol is
Yeah.
good. It's poison, blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
I understand that from a biochemical perspective, but as you allude to, it's really not that simple. I dramatically I drink dramatically less alcohol now than I used to before. Grew up in, kind of environment. My parents weren't drinkers at all, but, culturally in Newfoundland, of all places, alcohol is pretty normal
Hmm.
stuff. I've owned a nightclub. My dad and my brother own a bar to this day. And so it was kind of a very normal part of life. But, I'm now 47. I don't feel good when I drink, even modest amounts now, one drink, and I tend to, I notice it the next day. And like you said, affects my energy, my productivity, work, all of those things. And I've taken to now, I enjoy, there are some good 0% alcohol beers. Corona Zeros are fantastic. So I'm
Yes,
advocating.
they're great.
And the thing I thought about and realized is if you're in a social environment and you can actually still go through the ritual and the appearance and everything else, but drink something that, I mean, honestly, most people, if you just have a Corona Zero in your hand, someone may not even notice that it's not a regular Corona. Okay, cool, right? And it may help bypass a little bit of social pressure. Uh, but it's been game changing for me. Now, to your point, I think I've said this before on air. People understand this. We, for a long time, believed that there was health benefits to mild social drinking, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to go as far as say there are, but it's not the alcohol that was creating that
Yeah.
effect. It was the social side, as you said.
Yeah.
And it just shows how powerful and positive that social stuff is. Now, there's an argument to say that if most of your social stuff is being done with alcohol present, then that's a different conversation. And I would love to hear your
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
Yeah.
But I'm not comfortable saying that anybody who has a problematic history with alcohol, it's probably a good idea they remove it completely.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm not willing to get on a soapbox and say no one should ever drink anymore. I think it's highly nuanced, and I'm okay with sitting down and celebrating a really big win with a good glass of scotch.
Yeah. Yeah. Or sharing even like a glass of wine with your wife. I mean, the I guess you could say the thing that people say is like, oh well, you shouldn't if you need to be friends with someone while you have a drink in your body, then they're probably not your friends, right? But there is something to be said about the fact that we sometimes can be reserved individuals. We can be in our masks a lot.
Mm.
And what alcohol does, for better or for worse, is that it takes you out of that mask and it releases the inhibition, so you can actually increase the bonding with like other people. And I'm talking about this like super like dry, like scientific perspective. But no, the reality is like long story short, it's like if you actually drink with like a really good friend, you're probably gonna have like a really good time as a result of like just lowering the inhibition. So, so yeah, it's a very nuanced discussion, and I think like the pendulum right now has swung towards never have alcohol, alcohol's poison, and blah blah blah. And I do think that at some point it's going to swing back to the balance of saying like, hey, if this actually helps you like connect with other people, which it does for a lot of people, then maybe there is like some place as long as you have some semblance of control. And what that looks like is going to be objective. It's going to be different for every single person.
I'm guessing for the average person who drinks a fair bit of alcohol, how valuable would it be to address this just in isolation of any other change?
I would say if it's like a regular occurrence in your life and it's like every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, like you're getting down and you're doing it and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and it's like a habit, it's a behavior, it's like something you actually look forward to. I would then like say like question that. I'm always kind of like of the thought where if anything controls me, whether it be a substance or whether it be anything else, I want to question why it controls me.
Mm.
And I want to not have anything kind of like be this control or have this control over me. So if this thing is like, a habitual thing, and if you're being honest with yourself, you are having problems with it because you say like I can't live without it, then you should probably take a step back. Or if you're like my wife, where she goes out to with me to, restaurant or whatever, she'll maybe be like once a month and be like, okay, I feel like having like a little mezcal, and that's her thing. But she doesn't need it. She just does it, just because, because she's feeling it at that time. Then you probably don't have anything to worry about. So there's like a scale that we have to kind of like be aware of. And that does come with like a good dose of like self-awareness.
And have you noticed with the populations you're working with, especially for the hard charging entrepreneurs who end up, doing business socially and alcohol's involved with that, have you noticed that if they can rein that in, it's driven positive results?
Absolutely. It just becomes this habitual thing that you do with your either your employees or your partners or your clients. And when people kind of take this step back, and usually when they work with us, we're like, hey, we need to set up the environment completely so we can lose not only fat, but like visceral fat. Alcohol is pretty much like not good if you want to lose visceral fat. And we only want them to do it for like a very like short specific period of time. And then once we do it for that short specific period of time, which I think is like it's usually like 12 weeks, we allow them to, well, not allow them, but we say like we encourage to say like, hey, now let's bring in, if you love wine, let's bring in like a glass of wine, once a weekend or something like this. They take it from this habitual thing where they think that there is this mandatory need to drink it in specific situations to, hey, I can choose whether or not I want to drink it or whether or not I don't want to drink it. And when they reduce alcohol intake, what they find is that energy's increased, they're waking up every day, no brain fog, and then they don't realize that this has a compound effect on their ability to perform inside of their business, with their families. There's so many times, like especially with like health, it's like a slow burn. People don't realize what is changing, even though they've lost like 30, 40 pounds. They'd be like, oh, I just like lost 30, 40 pounds. But they don't really notice like the intangible changes where it's like, oh yeah, well, I'm able to like keep up with my kids. You have to like ask them this stuff. You have to like really dig. Like I could keep up with my kids. I wake up and I'm energized. I don't have a 3 p.m. crash. Like all these kind of things, like we don't realize all these intangible benefits that we're getting unless we actually extrapolate them and ask them or they journal it out themselves. So yeah, it's like one of these things where they don't really know it's going to have a big impact. They don't know how great the impact is going to be, and then once they do it, they usually find either a balance or they usually say, well, I'm not going to be drinking alcohol anymore.
It's been my experience that you take something like this out. It's almost true in the same of ultra processed food, especially when you may have something present that is sort of a mild irritation. Let's say someone's intolerant to something, not a
Mm.
full-blown allergy, and you take it out for a little while. Someone feels different, but then you reintroduce it again because they've been used to this low grade discomfort that's ever present. So it's just your normal. You take it out and then you bring it back in after a period of time, and all of a sudden people feel terrible. And I find
Yeah,
that's very true of alcohol.
yeah. People don't realize that was their modus operandi the whole time, and that's how they were feeling, which is wild. Like when, when our clients clean up their diet, they, get rid of ultra processed foods, they stop eating like as many sugars, all this kind of stuff. And then they end up like, eating like a ice cream sundae or something right out of the blue. And then they get like the stomach aches, they feel low energy, they feel like they got a hangover. I usually tell them, I was like, well, that was the way that you were feeling this whole time. You just realize it right now. Like that was your energy levels. So when people get rid of alcohol and they kind of like see what the world is like now outside of it, then they're going to realize that when they do take that one drink and if they become more body aware and they understand that the next day, holy crap, why is this like wedge in my brain? Why do I feel low energy? Why am I being more reactive to my emotions? And then when you get that, like the thing is like I love to say is like go to your extremes to find your balance.
Hmm.
So for you to find your balance, it's like you went to the extreme of always drinking every single week. Then you went to your extreme of not drinking at all. And then now you find this balance based on what that experience is, as you've experienced it. So yeah, usually I find that, when people kind of like revert back, they usually feel that hangover. And usually that's enough for them to kind of like figure out what the relationship is to alcohol or not.
Something else you've referenced in your posts a fair bit is it's another one of the red flags in your 20s is the tendency towards blame, let's say victim mentality.
Yeah.
Um, how important is that to being able to change?
It's It is of the most importance. I mean, there is no way that you can get in shape in the long term if you're blaming everyone for the reasons why you're out of shape. Absolutely not. Full stop. Uh, people will blame the fact that their parents never took care of themselves and that they have bad genetics and all this kind of stuff.
Mm.
And the more that you blame things that are outside of you and not take ownership of your own situation, the more that you are giving your agency away to things that will disempower you. So for anyone that wants to get in shape, they have to take full ownership. I don't think like the whole extreme ownership like Jocko, recommends is needed, but you just have to really take responsibility for where you took yourself, regardless, because we were always the ones putting the food in our mouth. We were always the ones sitting on the couch. Like no one told us to do this kind of stuff. So in order to change, in order to transform, we need to take ownership, and that is not an option. It is mandatory.
Long been a pet peeve of mine. There's a wing of the evidence-based fitness community, and I think many of them, their intentions are good. Some of them I actually think are malevolent actors who've sort of penetrated that side
Mm.
to gain worship and status within this, and they use messaging, and it may be statistical, factual information, leaning on evidence, and sometimes it's genetics, sometimes it's socio-political, demographic sort of things. But the messaging comes off as it's not your fault. And again, I'm careful about the term word fault, but I like the word responsibility. But as you said, the word disempowering, a lot of this messaging is extremely disempowering. And I think it's misguided empathy. Performative empathy is a
Yeah.
term I will use to sound virtuous, to say, they're there. It's not your fault. We know it's hard. But I find that a lot of the people that gravitate to that messaging are the people who are looking for a socially acceptable narrative to not change and to not put in the effort.
I I believe it all comes down to perception and the reality of which one sees perception or the perception of what one sees the reality. And what I mean by this is let's just say we got Keto Harry, right? Keto Harry is only going to look at everything through the lens of whether or not it supports keto or not. I remember I saw this like doctor post this thing and totally misrepresented the study about totally misrepresented. Hey guys, I told you like carbs are the devil and all this kind of stuff. And then the actual researcher came in and they had to say, no, this was actually not the conclusion of the actual study itself. It's actually the opposite of what you say. So I don't know about like these bad actors, but I do know that they have this perception of reality and they are living out that perception of reality by telling other people that you don't worry, it's not your fault. You have no responsibility in this. You can't do anything about it. So why even try? And
Mm.
this is more so coming from their own belief systems rather than it is coming from, let's just say absolute fact. Because you and I know that, anyone can change. Absolutely anyone. Are they doing it for nefarious means? I'm not exactly sure. But I do believe that there is a part of them that actually believes it, and it's like this fight between people in our spaces where we're like, "Hey, what's up? We actually work with these people every single day. We're seeing the changes like upfront and personal." And for them, I mean, they are getting incentivized to keep on saying this stuff. I mean, because attention is incentivization. So if they're getting the likes and they're attracting the right people and the people who don't want to take responsibility for the health, they're getting incentivized further to continue putting out content like that. And then that in and of itself is a vicious cycle.
Mm. And one of the, like I opened up, is you're really plugged into your mission and serving the end user. I'm pretty plugged into the industry, so I
Yeah.
have seen enough to know that there are few, but there are definitely some, I call them attention-seeking narcissists that have infiltrated the fitness industry and have figured out a formula to gain the attention, the status that you mentioned. But
Yeah.
again, they're the minority, but they exist. And once I've had nuanced conversation with people to be able to point this stuff out, because people come to me and they find certain things disempowering, and they have discomfort and conflict over, let's say, an ideological belief system, and yet some of the messaging, and then I break it down for them, and they go, "Oh, I now see it." Right?
Yeah.
Let's scale it out a bit. So you often talk about longevity as well. So a lot of the stuff we're talking about is, 40s and what have you, and it certainly alludes to long term. If someone wants to make living as long as possible, their guiding star,
Mhm.
what are you getting them to change or do?
The very first one is going to be not being sedentary. The avoidant. I always kind of like to invert the problem where
Mm,
what are all the things that I would get someone to do if I wanted them to die 10 years earlier than
mm,
let's just say the average time of death. The things that I would get them to do is like sit in the desk all day, sit down all day, like don't move, get like 2,000 to 3,000 steps per day, eat a diet full of hyper processed foods, mentally think absolute negative thoughts, be pessimistic about life, start fights online, a lot of them. Don't exercise, obviously. Like, you don't want to strength train. You definitely don't want to, build muscle because that will make you functional as you age. And probably that's going to set you up for like, possibly dying from a fall when you're like 60 years old, most likely. Obviously, get really fat too. Like, don't really see 300-pound 80-year-olds out there. So I would want to like go about it from the opposite angle, and then that is going to inform us of like what I would want this person to do to live a really full functional life. And it's important to actually do that too, especially for like a client, because I think we're living way more in this like kind of like era of like toxic positivity, where people don't necessarily know, or actually we're living on two extremes, like toxic positivity and also like extreme fear-based like type of marketing. But what I want to do is I want to paint the picture of like what will happen if you keep on doing specific things. And then
mm.
that you have to use both the carrot and the stick to motivate someone to make these changes. Now, if I wanted to get someone to live the longest and not have to let's just say get a blood infusion by someone that's like 50 years younger than them or something like that, like I would actually get them to walk at least like 7,000 to like at least 7,000 steps per day. And I wouldn't even do that in a conscious way. I would do that in a way that kind of like fits their lifestyle. Especially for me, I'm still sitting at a desk, so I have an under the desk treadmill. I do like walking meetings. I just take like every single opportunity I can to get out there and stroll a little bit. And I want to give myself at least like 7,000 steps a day and understand like how much walking that actually takes to like get there throughout my entire day. Then the other one would be obviously changing their diet. I would limit alcohol. We talked about that a lot. The other thing I would get them to do is like eat some form of like I would say it's like a Mediterranean-ish diet if they really want to live like the longest. But I would also like juxtapose that with making sure that you're getting at least like I think the numbers right now is like 0.73 to like 1 gram per pound of body weight in terms of like protein, so you can keep your muscle and even have a chance of building it from a strength training perspective, uh, I I would get people to just work out like 2 to 3 times per week. You know, 2 to 3 times per week, focusing on specific exercises. I don't think everybody should go in the gym like start like and do like completely different things every single time they hit the gym. I think like a great gym routine is actually one that rotates around the same like 12 to 15 exercises for the rest of your life until you die, essentially. And then the other thing that I would say is going to be the sleep part, which is like the removal of like waste, the removal of like brain waste, body waste. It helps you recover. And I would just like juxtapose all of that with like having a positive mindset, being very optimistic about the future, looking for ways in which you can learn, grow, always keeping like life somewhat exciting to yourself to live. Like I would just say like up until the time of your like 80s, 90s, hundreds, whatever it is, like you should be working on something and that thing can change over the course of time, but there should be some form of like purpose that you have for living this life. And I think from a psychological and mental perspective, I think that supersedes a lot of the physical things because if you do have a strong enough why of like why you need to live, and you do have a mission and you have a purpose, that is gonna actually make all those other things a little bit easier because you actually have a big why as to like why you're getting up out of bed every single morning.
I believe that probably is a big driver for healthy behavior and they compound.
Yeah,
Your point about the step count, I recently bought a Garmin, which is I don't want to watch on my wrist. Like I
yeah,
want nothing to do with notification on my wrist, but so it's probably a very expensive step counter, but that is the entire purpose. I want to check step count. And I train full-time in person in addition to, the other online work I do in the podcast. And I assume that I was easily hitting 10,000 steps a day just due to how much of staying. I wasn't even close, right? Not
yes,
even close.
yeah,
And I probably am averaging in around the 7,000 range but which is, we now know that the research points to that's kind of the major number to hit.
Yeah.
But even still, I dramatically overestimated my step count. And I like this because it has motivated me to, look down at a day and go, oh, I'm below normal. And I've then been incentivized to go out for walks. And then I feel really good because I'm out walking when there's not smoke in the air like we've had the last few days,
Yeah.
which I would
Yeah.
avoid.
Yeah.
Now, again, this is more fitness gear, but you do reference financial stuff. And obviously,
Hmm.
we're not going to get deep into the weeds about, hardcore investment, what have you.
Hmm.
But and the thing you mentioned about inversion, it's a brilliant mental model, and it was probably popularized by Charlie Munger. If anybody's familiar with Charlie, Charlie is one of the smartest financial minds we've ever seen. Go read anything he's talked about. Is there anything I think is more accessible here for appropriate to this audience on the financial side of stuff through the lens of inversion that
Hmm.
can put someone in a position for better long-term, medium-term, long-term health and longevity?
Yeah. Financial stress is probably one of the most underrated ways to age yourself faster. I'll throw that out there. Number one. Number two is let's invert the problem again. If I really wanted to increase the level of my financial stress, I would spend everything on my credit card
Mhm.
and don't pay it off every single, only pay off the minimum every single month. I would get heavy into status items. I would buy the Rolexes. I would get the financing for the car, the expensive car. I would get all these things to impress other people. Where after about like the first 2 to 5 weeks of dopamine hits, it just becomes like a regular car, just like a regular piece of status item. The other thing I would say financially is don't save. Even if you're in debt, like don't save. Don't put away any set aside any type of money. There's something to be said about having money in your bank, even if it's like not invested, that gives you a sense of security. So don't do that for yourself. Like definitely don't be saving and don't be keeping any like emergency funds or anything like that. And then, because you're not saving, then you're not investing. You're not taking the time or the ability, or you're not actually learning how to invest your money to put it in the right places. So, so with all that said, I used to deal with severe, at the time, severe credit card debt. It was like 15K of credit, over 15K of credit card debt. I was paying the minimums. I was like probably like 20 something years old or something like that. It was like a bane on my existence. And one of the best things that I ever did for myself was number one, I subordinated everything so I can pay off that balance and not have to and always have the habit of paying off my whole credit card balance every single month. That was like the most important thing I ever did because it allowed me to have some extra cash at the end of the month so I can actually put that away. So I could have like built this almost like this nest of cash that makes me feel somewhat secure just in case. I think that's like one of the most important things. And then afterwards, it's just like saving, like saving whatever you can, at least in the very beginning. And then once you save whatever you can, even if you're in debt, like put away like $5, into your bank account. Like even just like give yourself that, $5 a week or $5 a month, whatever. It all adds up over the course of time. And then what you're going to do with that money is number one, you're going to hit the first mark, which is like save until you have like this emergency fund so you don't have to like worry for the next 6 months just in case anything happens. And then the next thing I would do is I would actually I would take the excess money after that and then learn how to invest. And then I wouldn't day trade. I would just like put it into like index funds or like Bitcoin or something. And then the last thing I would say is getting around people who actually have really good money values. If you hang around people who are doing the things that we said, like with the inversion of the financial problem, who are doing all those things and you're hanging around them, just by process of osmosis, you are going to act in the same value as they are acting. So you want to get around people who value money, who know how to grow it. And lastly, always look for ways to increase your income and look for ways to decrease expenses. And this is something that you do like every single month. So how can I like add, extra money to what we're doing? And how can I actually take away something that we are expensing right now that we don't need? And then the more that you can kind of like, because getting rich is not necessarily about making more money, it's about actually spending less. So yeah, I mean, like if someone was feeling the financial stress, I would say there is a way out, but you want to do things step by step at a time. And yeah, that's what I would say to someone who has like severe financial stress.
If someone's really, if the financial stuff, because again, this is really sort of like almost outside of scope. Go read I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. It's a fantastic book. And I would say The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel.
Yeah,
They're two of my favorite resources. There's also I think he's from Ontario, Jimmy Chong. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And he's got a great Instagram account and he talks a lot of no nonsense financial stuff. Now,
yeah.
you mentioned earlier, and I said we would get into this. How important is the environment you create in your life for your health, in particular with the people you surround yourself? There's both a choice of career, but also, friends and again, the media you consume, you alluded to.
How do you set up the environment
Yeah,
or
your thoughts, and you can take this in any
oh,
sort of direction you want. Curating
yeah.
it, the impact.
Yeah. The most important thing in your life is going to be the people that you surround yourself with. Uh, and I'll tell you this. If you still hang around the same people that you hung around from like high school and they're like your main group of friends and you're not expanding out of that, that's unless they're like crushing it. I mean, like that's a sign that you're not really going outside your comfort level. Uh, I have probably three friends, four friends from my high school who still love spending time with. And that's dwindled from having like 30 friends. And as you kind of like, if you are on this growth stage, and if you are kind of like on this path uh, to to growing, to improving your values, to improving your value as a person in terms of like what you do, then automatically you are going to have to be with people who support that specific value. If you want to make more money, hang around people who make loads more money than you do. If you want to get fitter, you want to be hanging around people who are way fitter than you are. Actually, I go to this gym inside of my town, and when I walk in the gym, I'm not going to say what gym it is, but when I walk in this gym, there's like a bunch of like 25, 20-year-olds, all this kind of stuff. It's a fantastic gym, great for bodybuilding. But when I walk in there, I'm like, holy crap, like I'm like the least fit person in here. I feel like I need to like take some like TRT or something like that. But I like that. I like the fact that I walk in there and I'm not like, the best because that actually pushes me to work out a little bit harder and to figure out ways to eke out my own potential. So what's going to happen as we kind of like go on this like path of growth is you're going to find out which kind of friends do I really want to keep, the ones that support the values that I uphold. And then you're gonna have to make the hard choice to get rid of people who are enabling, say, vices and kind of like bad values, and also like who are bad influences, so to speak. And then after that, you're gonna go through a lonely period where, as you try to upgrade and find these friends that are kind of like in this space that you want to be in, there's gonna be a lonely period. You're not gonna be around a lot of people like that until you find those friends. I would suggest you can to accelerate that period is to invest into conferences, invest into masterminds, invest into these kind of groups where you can get around these people and then also develop these relationships. But your environment, specifically the people that you hang around, they are going to be probably the biggest predictor of your success or your lack of success. And you want to take that seriously. You want to absolutely take that seriously. I'll actually say like probably 2 years ago, we decided to move to a specific town. And part of the reason we wanted to move to this town that we're living in right now is because of the quality of the community. Not to say that the quality of community that we had like back home was, bad, so to speak, but the quality of this community I mean, it was everybody had health as a value. Everybody was an entrepreneur. People were doing some major big things inside of their lives. And I want to be around that energy. That's the energy that I want to be around. And the more that you can kind of like get yourselves into these environments, like the more that you're going to accelerate your own growth just through process of osmosis.
And you have been friends with Jonathan Goodman for quite a bit of time as well, right? You guys are old
Yes.
friends. Jonathan,
Like the reason why we're friends is because we like reached out to each other. I think it was like me, JC Dean, and Raj Law.
mm,
And And because of the fact that we didn't have access to, let's just say, a lot of really high quality people, we essentially formed our own like mastermind. It's like, hey, do you guys want to be a part of this? And yeah, I've known John ever since I kind of like started in the fitness industry. I was there for like his book launches, for other people's book launches, and yeah, he's been a good friend throughout all of this.
He's been a great friend to me too. I was just in Toronto for an event, and each of the last 3 years, and if I'm not mistaken, I think all 3 years, certainly the last two, John has made the effort to get on the train to come in and see me to hang out, even for just an hour. And that's the kind of person he is. He's always invested effort. And I certainly know on the career side of stuff, getting out to conferences and events and having great friends in my life. I mean, some of the people who I consider my closer friends in the industry are people like a Nick Shaw of RP Strength, one of my
Mm.
sponsors. They're incredible. Luca Hocevar, obviously, Luca and I spend a ton of time together at
Yeah.
conferences and events. And you were recently on his podcast. It was a great interview. Lee Boyce, who I know you're about to have a chat with very soon, Melody Schoenfeld. And I mean, that list is a very long, exhaustive list. So obviously, I can't get everybody. But when I'm out in these spaces and I am at those tables, and it's funny because I always joke that I'm a six-figure fitness professional, but I sit at a lot of seven-figure tables. And what it does, it broadens my horizons about what is possible in the
Right.
industry. And instead of kind of playing small and being complacent with this stuff.
Hmm.
So I know its value.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I guess what else in your environment would you intentionally focus on curating for success and health?
Uh, the type of content that I'm reading on an everyday basis, that's like a big one. That's a massive one. When I choose the people I follow, I don't really follow like that many people on like social media. And for good reason. It's because I want to protect my brain when I scroll on, my feed. And also like I specifically I have like two algorithms. So I think we talked about like, the whole like mind numb brain rot
Mm.
scrolling. And one of my accounts, it is optimized for really funny shit, like just funny stuff, funny memes, whatever, funny reels. The other one's more optimized towards fitness. So the curation of like the people that you follow is a big one. And I like to just I'm straight up. I'm like I will mute and block with with no reservation whatsoever. I will tell Instagram, I don't want to see this, or I will tell X, like, I don't want to see this on my feed. And it's that constant, it's like cutting. It's like cutting like all the ridiculousness from your tree of knowledge. So the people that you follow is going to be a huge one. Other things that I love to do is this is going to sound weird, but like I have even like in front of me, I have like this picture with like Bruce Lee, Marcus Aurelius, and Elon Musk. And whatever you feel about Elon Musk, keep it to yourself. But but I look at these pictures and I try to pretend as if I am getting advice and talking to these people based on kind of like these situations I'm going through. I feel like there's like this way that you can put into your environment these little pictures and also these images that will influence your trajectory and where you want to be, especially from like an advisor standpoint, but also from like an envisioning standpoint. I love to have things that support the vision I'm bringing into reality. And like the last thing is like the removal, the subtraction of things in your environment. So if I want to stick to my diet, I mean, am I going to be keeping like cookies around? If I want to be focused, am I going to have like 10,000 tabs like running at the same time? It's all these little things that we can do to subtract from our environment that would actually improve our ability to get the job done, whatever that is. One of the things I did probably like 1.5 years ago was I stopped bringing my phone to the gym and I brought only like my Apple Watch because on my Apple Watch I can just like track my workouts and done. When I have my phone with me, I'm like looking at between sets. I'm like, elongating the period of which I work out by like an hour. And one of the things I wanted to do is like I wanted to get away from my phone while I'm working out so I can actually have a really good workout. So it's just like the subtraction of all these things and ways in which you can kind of like get yourself focused when you step into an environment. Those are probably like one of the best things that you can do for yourself because it's evergreen too. You don't have to repeat it. It's already done.
This has been great. And there are a lot of coaches that listen, despite the fact that the effort has been to make these episodes more accessible to the general audience. But to the coaches listening, I think some of you guys might hear some of this and go, oh, yeah, this stuff is entry level common sense. Well, okay. Are you practicing it in your own world? Are you communicating these things well to the people you want to help, or are you mostly spending your time in internet fights?
Mm,
And look critically in the mirror about this stuff. And I encourage people to go follow your media, and they can follow you at Dan Founder on
yeah.
Instagram. And they're going to see a great lesson. I mean, even as I was researching this, I realized that there's a way that you will put things together that I think is so accessible. And you and I do a lot of text-based media. You also do more video now. But it reminded me of some things. I'm like, hey, I could and should do more of this. And we'll see that may reflect in my media as well, uh, about how I want to show up in this fitness space.
Yeah.
And so, again, for the coaches, there's a lot of wisdom there that you guys will benefit from. And at the same time, this is an episode that I think speaks to the heart of the people we're trying to help. So hopefully you'll take this and share it with that person in your world you're trying to, get some of these lessons through to. And is there anywhere else you'd want to direct people? I presume get them on your email list because, again, if someone wants to learn copywriting and all that sort of
Yeah.
stuff and messaging, it's great for that.
I guess they could see the way that I put things together on my newsletter. So yeah, they can go to dango.co newsletter and they should be able to sign up there. They could check me out and on pretty much any platform. Just search out Dango. You'll find me. And yeah, like if there's to the coaches that are listening to this, all I gotta say is like, what are we in this for? We're in this for to educate people, not fight other people. Uh,
Mhm.
and for like, if someone just wants to get themselves in shape, actually, the last thing that we talked about, which is like environment and the people that you surround yourself with, that's gonna be like the most important. I would audit the people that you are hanging around right now, and if you have to, make some like hard decisions based on what you got to do. So, but yeah, Andrew, I appreciate you having me on to the podcast. Uh, Always enjoy talking to you and interacting with you on social media.
I really appreciate having you here, and everybody go please follow, check out what Dan is doing. You're gonna be better for it. Stay tuned for the next episode.